Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for being here. I am so excited. I have for my guest today Ken Akbar. And Ken is a community activist. He's also an author. He's written a book called, what's the name of your book again?
Beyond these walls.
Beyond These Walls. And so we're going to talk about that later. But I want to just have Ken share his story, his journey, and everything that brought him back to Atlanta. But prior to that, Ken, I was listening to the news and I see that the Senate declined having the voters' rights bill debated. Um, do you have any comment on that? Probably should have talked to you about this earlier, but do you have any comment on what's going on with voters' rights and all of that, particularly here in Georgia?
Well, my position has been very clear. We, and this is the very reason that we have to remain so vigilant in the work that we must continue, is because there is a continual effort of those that are opposed to what is fair, just, and equitable. And this is a clear example of what we've been faced with.
Absolutely. And what you're doing in the community lends so much support to what is absolutely necessary that we as a people look at doing. So, Ken, why don't you take a few minutes to share your journey?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for having me on, Vera.
You're welcome.
My name is Kenneth Akbar, but most people call me Ken. I am the sixth child of 9 children. I was born to two of the most amazing people of their time. My father, Author David Beavers Jr., and my mother, Gloria Stropshire Beavers. My parents purchased a home in this historic Black community called Joyland in January 1958. I was born 3 weeks later, February 18th, 1958. And so I took my first steps in this community. And at the time that I was a child, and those children that were blessed to grow up during that era, this really was the village that raised the child. We had so many thriving Black businesses up and down the Pryor Road corridor. We really didn't have to leave this community for anything. There were 2 grocery stores, 2 barbershops, eateries, a Black doctor's office. As a matter of fact, Dr. Brown removed the cyst from my leg when I was about 7 years old. So, I was blessed to be the recipient of both worlds. I mean, I feel like I've got the best of both worlds because my mother's people were hands-on people, farmers that had their own farms and raised their own livestock and fruits and vegetables. They lived off the land. And my mother is originally from Palmetto, Georgia. And my father and his siblings were raised a few blocks from Atlanta University. So they were academians and educators. And so we were blessed to have the best of both worlds. I spent much of my professional career here in Atlanta in public safety as a police officer, fireman. And I moved to California in the early 90s. And after spending 26 years there, I came home initially to release my first book. I actually published the book after I arrived here in Atlanta in July 2017. The book is called Beyond These Walls, and it is a poetic autobiography. And almost immediately upon returning home in 2017, I found myself troubled in my spirit in terms of some of the things that I saw as we went about the city. the kind of homelessness that I never saw growing up in Atlanta uh, impacted me, along with the fact that a number of these historic Black communities around Atlanta have been completely gentrified, in that there's little or no evidence of the great legacy that was established there by those people that lived there prior to the communities being gentrified. So it sort of lit a fire in me, knowing the historic value of this community I was blessed to grow up in. Again, the community is called Joyland, and it's called Joyland because a dynamic group of African American civic leaders, business leaders, clergy came together at the turn of the 20th century and purchased this land that this subdivision sits on right now. They purchased the land and they built the first amusement park for Blacks in the city of Atlanta in 1921, and the amusement park was called Joyland.
That's
So,
awesome.
so that in addition to just seeing not only the state of affairs in other communities, but what existed here in this community when I came home in 2017. As I went about the community and began to interact with the remaining seniors who happened to be in their 80s and 90s in this community, they literally cried on my shoulder about how bad the community was, that they were even afraid to sit on their front porches because of the shootings and lawlessness. And I noted that our children in this community really didn't have a fighting chance because we have all the facilities here to do great things with our youth. A beautiful park with a baseball diamond, basketball courts, tennis courts, and but it wasn't being a community center. But there were no programs for the kids, for the youth here,
And
and
let me ask you, as a result of there not being programs, you've noticed the change that occurred. And I want you to kind of talk about, as a result of not being those things being in the community, what did you see? But before you answer that, I want to just acknowledge some of our guests that are listening. Wanda Hollis, thank you. She is a fellow, she is a family. She's a part of the DJ Grady Baby Radio. I'm so honored that you're watching tonight. I also want to say hello, Sandy. Our friend Sandy is watching, and she's saying, great show, Vera. Kenneth Akbar is an amazing man with a very honorable testament to his parents. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy, for watching. And let's see, we've got Felicia. She's also another family member from DJ Grady Baby. Good evening, beautiful people. Good evening to you, beautiful lady, as well. And then we've got someone from North Carolina listening to us. Hello, Lily Baldwin. Thank you so much for watching. Then Wanda said, this is great history. And we've got a fist bump from Carmen. Thank you very much. All right. Now that I've acknowledged some of our, and I will be doing that intermittently between our conversation. So back to my question. What do you feel, how do you feel not having those kinds of things in the community? And this is across the country. It's not just, but, and it's typical. We see what has happened to our communities as a result, one, of gentrification, but two, because things were allowed to happen in the community that took away the grocery stores, that took away the recreations. And I want you to kind of talk about that.
well, having grown up in the turbulent, volatile 60s and 70s as a child, I'm very acquainted with the assaults that took place, not only in this historic community, but in other Black communities across the country, other minority communities across the country. I saw the drugs and other things that became impediments for many of our people across the country. So here in this community, that was one of the challenges that I noted when I returned home, that that our community had almost literally been taken over by young people who were irresponsible, didn't have any stakes in the community. They weren't even from the community. They had literally taken over our community park, and it just, something had to be done about it. So those are some of the great motivators that led to me getting involved. And when I got involved initially, I was just boots on the ground. I'd like to acknowledge Pastor Daniel Dixon of Macedonia Baptist Church. He was one of my first great allies in the community because he was the last stakeholder, I should say, in the community in terms of somebody doing positive things and constructive things with the kids and our seniors. And he was also the last one to host community meetings. So I was able to get with him and ask him would he please resume the meetings, and he made me aware of the fact that he had gotten old and that he couldn't walk the community and he needed some young legs. And so that's how I sort of initially got in, passing out flyers for our community meetings, interacting with residents in the community, and really got in at the ground floor. And after a while, we realized that we needed to reorganize our civic league because it had been disbanded. Just like anything else, if there's no representation, you get overlooked.
Absolutely.
So we went to work and we reestablished our civic league, a civic league that my own father was the president of at one time. Mr. Hill, who still happens to be alive,
Yes.
93-year-old Mr. Hill, he was president of
Speaking of Mr. Hill, Henry Hill, is that his name?
Yes.
Okay.
Edmund. Yes.
Okay, well,
Edmund
Henry Hill may be his son, but he says, Mr. Akbar, truth to power, and has a great impact to his community. So you got community listening to you right now. In fact, your daughter, Kenya, she's listening to you right now. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the love. And so, again, I will be interrupting as you're talking, just to acknowledge that people took the time to come and listen, and we appreciate you doing that. Now, you had indicated that I know that you're doing some great things in the community. I know firsthand how much work you're putting into this community. And so I want you to talk about the kinds of things that you have implemented already, the gardens and all this other great stuff. So I want you to just kind of share.
Well, I've been very fortunate in that I've had a great supporting cast. I'd like to acknowledge my right-hand man and foot soldier, Jared Billings, who is the vice president of Joyland Civic League. He's also the official mayor of Joyland. And Janice Hudson, who is the second generation here in Joyland, who's also a civic member. Yes, so we sort of identified the types of things that we needed to target, and to bring back civic responsibility and law and order and resources back to this community so that we can be able to provide the kinds of programs that the youth and the seniors deserve. So, but we knew that we had to clean up the community first. I mean, this was the first thing that we knew that we had to address. It began initially because I believe in pro-education. And so I went about the community talking with the youth, making them aware of the historic value of this community. And I know many of them didn't remember me because I had been away from Atlanta for 26 years. But at any rate, we went about educating them about the things that we could do to make this a better Joyland. And so we did that probably the first year and a half, just going around educating people, talking with the youth, talking with the seniors. And then we began to strategize on what it is we needed to do. Because our community park really had become overrun. I mean, it was insane that this became a gathering spot in our community. It was as if somebody put a post on Facebook saying that Joyland is a community where you can come to the park, drink alcohol, do your drugs, sell drugs, trash the park, throw your trash all in the creek that runs through our community, which also runs into the South River. And we spent many man hours down there talking with them about these things. So it didn't seem to make any real difference, and so we had to petition the city to actually close the park. And we've been able to achieve that. I want to thank Joyce Shepherd, our district representative, and all of our city officials that assisted us in this great feat. At present, there are still bollards in front of the entrance on the Thornton Street side of our community park because we needed to stop all of the vehicular traffic from coming into that park, which always overflowed onto the street and interfere with residents being able to go to and fro. There are only two points of access and egress in this community, and it's Arthur Langford Jr. Place on one side and Thornton Street on the other. So in addition to that, we also identified and outlined with the city specific things that needed to be done. With the rains, the banks of our creek had eroded because of all the trash and debris that had been thrown into the creek. They needed to install a trash trap. There were a number of trees that had not been trimmed in that park for some time, and so they needed to trim these trees. And what they're doing now, it's turning out absolutely beautiful. It's beyond what we anticipated. The city is doing an amazing job. Got these big, beautiful stone boulders going down the side, the banks of the creek now, and they're going to redo the basketball courts, tennis courts, baseball diamond, the playground, and the skateboard park.
That is so awesome. I want to acknowledge Trisha Hurd. She says, thank you, Mr. Akbar, for all the great things you do in our community. And those of you that are listening, I just want you to know this is a man with a passion, with a dream, with a love for his community. He came back from Los Angeles to do this work. This also shows that sometimes it doesn't take 50 or 100 people to get something done. If you've got one person, look at what happened with Martin Luther King. When you've got one person that's willing to put forth the effort and other people see the work that he's doing, then they come in line and they follow his lead. So we need leaders in every community to do this kind of work. And I just want to say to you, Mr. Akbar, what you are doing is invaluable, and it will leave a legacy, not just for you and your children, but for a community at large. I want to ask you, I know that you engage, I know you love senior citizens, and I know you engage with them a lot. And where the youth are concerned, can you kind of give our audience an idea of how you went about engaging them to the point where they are now interested in being involved in your efforts?
Well, our mission statement, a part of our mission statement says to take better care of our seniors and to cultivate our youth in this community. So as I went about the community, I made a point to stop and speak with the kids, particularly because I wanted to continue to infuse them with hope because there were no programs for them at the time. And I would always reassure them that I'm working on their behalf to ensure that they have the types of programs and things that we were fortunate to have in this community when I was a kid. And so after a while, it became like I was a Pied Piper. I'd come outside and I have a whole line of kids follow me down the street. Mr. Akbar, when you going to bring back Little League sports? We're waiting, buddy. So it's coming. There's been a labor of love for me because, again, so much has gone into this. Just knowing that, My father was a community leader. I know I'm stepping into big shoes, and we're just honored to be of service. Is what it is.
That's wonderful. Now, I know that you got a meeting coming up soon too, don't you?
Yes, this will be the very first meeting since the onset of COVID-19. So I guess that's about 15 months now.
Yes.
We've actually had the flyers made up, and we were able to do the community meeting agenda. And our next meeting, and this will be the very first meeting since COVID, will be July 28th. Our community meetings are always on the last Wednesday of every month, and they're held at Arthur Langford Junior Community Center, which is the community center in our community.
Awesome. Now, I would also like for you to share, I'm putting the meeting date on here so that people can see. July 28th, and it's going to be at?
6:30 p.m.
Okay, awesome.
And it will be at Arthur Langford Junior Community Center, which is the community center in our community.
Okay. It's Author Langford?
Yes.
Okay, so we're putting this on here so that our listening audience that may live in the area can take advantage and come and participate and be a part of what this great man, he's not only a great man of the community, but he's also a great man of God. And I know he trusts God explicitly and implicitly in all that he does. And Ken, I also know you are a poet. And I had asked you if you would share some of your poetry. That's why, audience, I did not start with a poem today because I want to give him the floor to share some of his work. And then we'll come back and talk about community again, okay?
Well, again, I've been very fortunate. My father, was academic disciplinarian, and so he demanded the very best for all of his children. And so my favorite subjects in school, my two favorite subjects in school, were history and English literature. And I was very fortunate at Luther Judson Price High School here in Atlanta, which is now middle school, to have a teacher by the name of Mrs. Rawls. She was my English literature teacher, and she discovered a latent talent that I didn't know existed in me and began to cultivate it. She introduced me to all the great poets, and I was attracted to the fact that these poets, some of which were activists, and they used their pen and their voice to address social issues. So, that was right up my lane. So, I became the poet laureate of my classes there at the high school. So
congratulations.
Yes.
I like before you share your poem, because I want I want everyone to give you their undivided attention. But I want to just acknowledge a couple other people or a couple of comments that have come in. Trisha Hurd, she said, "I'll be there." And Felicia, she says, "Wow, one person can definitely make a difference. Thank you for doing your part for change. More should follow your lead." And then she asked the question, does your organization have a youth mentorship?
Well, that's actually what we are doing right now. We're doing the administrative work, and we're going about the community. Just passed out some surveys to our residents to get a gauge on what types of programs they would like to see implemented at our community center. And so in addition to doing training with our youth, we want to do some adult training as well, so that we can help better equip our young adults with skills and so forth that will enable them to be able to go out here in the world at large and take great care of themselves. And so so that's pretty a broad sphere of of training and activities for the kids that we're looking at. And right now we're open to suggestions in the community about what they'd like to see.
That's awesome. And I know before COVID, the momentum was there. We were, and there were several people that were working with you, with your lead, to kind of get some things done. And then COVID happened, and it kind of put a stop to all that kind of engagement, because I know you also was working with the city to beautify that community. And so now that things are opening up, I'm sure that the group will be all getting back together to see these programs put into the community, working with adults, working with children, working with families. That is what it's all about. And, a lot of times we look outside and we want this big thing to happen, when inch by inch is a sense. Mile by mile, it may be hard, but inch by inch is a sense, one at a time, one family at a time, and the others will follow. So what you're doing, again, it's a testament to how great things can be when you have someone taking the lead and others coming in and cooperating and collaborating to make it happen. One other thing before you share your poem: the police visibility in the community and the cooperation that you've gotten from the police department to clean up the parks, to clean up the community, and to do some things. Can you kind of talk about that for a minute as well?
Well, yes, sure. We started early on in rebuilding our relationships with all of the city officials, not only the top brass with the Atlanta Police Department, but with code enforcement, with public works, because we know that this is a partnership between us and the city. The city, does their part, and we have to do our part. So we began early on in engaging our leaders in the city to join us in making this a better Joyland. I'd like to acknowledge Major Sensor. Major Sensor was the zone commander for Zone 3 when I got home. And he's now in Zone 2 over in Midtown and Buckhead. And at that time, the assistant zone commander was Major Peak, Carlos Peak. He was Captain Peak then, but he got promoted, and now he's Major Peak, and he is the Zone 3 commander. So I have a great relationship with both Major Peak and Captain Adams, who is also the assistant zone commander for Zone 3. And they were, ecstatic that we were taking the position that we needed to, because it makes their job easier for them, if we work together in this partnership.
Exactly.
And there are certain things that we couldn't do without their assistance.
Exactly. And I wanted you to talk specifically about that, because there's so much controversy about police and our community. And this shows that there can be a partnership, there can be a collaboration. And I'm hoping that there's going to be more of that in all cities. So that's why I wanted to, and I broke off from what I asked you to do originally, just to kind of throw that out there.
But if I could say one thing before we go on to the poetry, because you mentioned about COVID.
Yes.
And that when the onset of COVID really didn't hamper or interfere with our efforts at all. To the contrary, we found ourselves having to fill even more gaps. I mean, we were feeding the community. At times, we were feeding the community before COVID, and hosting barbecues and things like that. We'll make sure we fed our seniors. And but when COVID came and people were out of work and suffering in the way that they were, we were able to partner with the city and other nonprofits to be able to provide groceries for the community throughout COVID. And we are still passing out groceries to residents in this community.
That's awesome. When I said COVID impacted, I know we were meeting on a regular basis and doing things like that, but I have no doubt in my mind that you were continuing to be about the business of uplifting people, encouraging people, and helping people. I know without a doubt, COVID never stopped that, but COVID stopped
Yes.
us from coming together as a group, but it didn't stop you from doing what needed to be done.
And another interesting thing is, I think it revealed to many people around the country that we don't always have to be in the physical presence of one another to achieve the same level of work. I mean, we were still conducting Zoom meetings with city officials and other organizations as we continue to build our relationships and partner with other communities. I'd like to mention too that when the police shooting occurred here in Atlanta with Rayshard Brooks, and the Wendy's, which is not very far from this community, was burned down. And the protesters began to sit there and refuse to leave the site where the Wendy's was. And those young people there were anti-everything. They were anti-police, anti-firemen, anti-city officials. They didn't want to speak to anybody in authority. Joyce Shepard called a community-wide meeting with all of the community leaders and asked us, would we please join her in creating the Southeast Task Force. And the community leaders came together not only to go up and try to negotiate with the protesters and get a feel for what their issues were and what their demands were, but we also came together and kept cleaning up that Prior Road and University Avenue corridor because it was being trashed every week, not only with the protesters, but with the homeless situation. And so what that did, it brought these community leaders together, some of whom had never met each other. And from that, we've continued to build a platform now where we attend each other's community meetings. We support each other in each other's efforts. And so we stepped outside of our community boundaries and MPU designations to support each other in whatever ways we can to make our communities better.
That's awesome, Ken. That is awesome. And again, you are a model. Joyland is a model community that others could possibly take what you've done and make it happen and make it work in other communities. Wouldn't that be awesome to see that happen?
Yes, no doubt. Absolutely.
And I'd like for you to take a few minutes and let's share some poetry.
Okay, well, if I may give just a little background, I was blessed to be a part of Writers Guilds, both here in Atlanta, Georgia, before moving to California, the Black Writers Posse. And then upon arriving in California, I got involved with the Riverside Renaissance Writers Guild. And I've been doing open mic and poetry recitals around the country for a number of years now. And a number of my colleagues began to nudge me and urge me to publish this book because I've amassed volumes and volumes of poetry. The oldest poem that I have, I wrote when I was 16 years old. It's actually the first poem in my book. And it's called Mad Outrage. And it says, when I try to relate to people of my age, they look at me and say, you're in a mad outrage. I'm on a higher plane than most of the others, the materialistic minds of my sisters and brothers. When I try to relate about the evilness of this land, the confusion and corruption I can no longer stand. My people, I pray that you make it through this stage, for indeed you're the one in the mad outrage.
I love it. 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 And you were 16 years old when you wrote that
16 years old.
poem.
That's the oldest poem that I have on record. I have a copy of. But yeah, this book was a labor of love. It's actually autobiography of my life. And the Lord has certainly blessed me to have had a very colorful life. And So I actually start penning this book uh, seriously for publication in 2016. And it took me about 12 to 13 months because I self-published to get all the skill sets necessary to be able to do what the Lord blessed us to do. So we're really grateful for that. I also have another book that I have not published yet, but it's being edited, and it's called Saving a Legacy. And it tells the story of what kept me here in Atlanta and what has led to this level of activism.
That's awesome. We got another comment. Kev says, big brother of my big brother, always a great influence to me as well as your brothers. Your light must shine. His light does shine. Awesome. Okay. Let's hear something else.
Sure. This poem, again, realizing, having grown up in the volatile 60s and 70s, I remind particularly our young people that when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, I was 10 years old. And we were at elementary school that day. And I recall vividly the teachers running up and down the hallway screaming and crying. And they closed the school and let us go home early. So over the years, even as a child, wondering why is it that we can't seem to get along? Why is it that we are at each other's throats? Because, we are really one humanity, right? And it spawned this poem, which is called Brotherhood. And it says, why can't we relate to each other like men? Love our fellow man and become true friends? So much jealousy and unfounded hate. While time moves swiftly, we run late, never truly realizing the purpose of our being. Traveling through this life, open eyes yet unseen, to the many degrees of beauty and unlimited love that emanates consistently from the force above. So let's love each other and watch love give birth to a state of utopia right here on this earth. And by then, I'm certain that we all really should have a better understanding of the word brotherhood.
I know you're supposed to click. You won't hear my clicks, so I'm clapping. Okay, that's awesome. That is so awesome. And just think, because if all of us, if we came together and respected and valued each of us as human beings, knowing that together we can do much. A chain is as strong as its weakest link. And when there's a fight to make that link weak and to continue to suppress it, we're only hurting ourselves as a nation, as humanity. And so, man, that poem needs to be on a billboard.
Well, if I just may interject that I've been very fortunate and I'm ecstatic that even this type of dialogue is going on. There is a more than a sentiment, is turning into a movement of people who really are trying to understand, what is gentrification, and am I a part of gentrification? Atlanta has really lived up to something that has been saying since the 70s. I remember when Maynard Jackson was calling the city of Atlanta international city in the 70s. And it is truly the international city now, which means that we've got different cultures and races of people that are from not only from all over the country, but all over the world.
Yes.
And so it's this mad scramble right now, for property, anything in close proximity to downtown and the airport, the real estate values are going through the roof. So there's been a dialogue on next door where different races of people in our city are dialoguing about gentrification and colonialism. And I was just honored to be a part of that dialogue.
Well, it's a dialogue that needs to exist on a consistent base, because here in Atlanta, you're right, it's an international city. And I have had the honor and privilege of meeting so many races and so many, I mean, young and old, and being able to dialogue and talk to them. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's just those few that makes all that noise that's keeping, though. That's why I keep saying we have got to be a light. We have got to let our light shine. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to do it for a whole bunch of people. If you just do it for one, if you just give that light to someone in the grocery store or anywhere, and so it's that's important, I feel, and you're doing it. This gentrification has destroyed many of our communities, but through if we can all live in those environments, with the economics being so that anybody could live in those communities. And I understand that they're trying to do some things in East Point. Some gentrification is happening in East Point right now as well, because it's so close to the airport. And so we need to be aware of what's happening and why it's happening.
Well, I've been very fortunate again. This past Friday, I was in 19th celebration in Sylvan Hills, which is a community not far from here. It's actually the same community that George Shepherd lives in. So there was a significant number of people from different races that were there, not just for the Juneteenth celebration, but they're out in the community and interfacing with one another in an effort to make things better for everybody. So, we know that there is still much work to do, but we're very fortunate in that we're in a great position
Yes.
to not only be a part of the work, but to see it through. There are a number of things here in this community that we haven't completed yet, but we're well on our way, and we're determined to see them through.
Yes. And we have another comment from Felicia. She says, yes, sharing your proven program and process is so needed in our communities throughout America. Group economics is also key to building strong, thriving communities. We need to own more homes and businesses in our communities. Do you have any entrepreneurship programs?
Yes. Let me just say that prior to COVID, we were having our community meetings at our community center on the fourth Wednesday of every month, the last Wednesday of every month. And then we were having business meetings at our public library down here. That's Louise Watley's Southeast Atlanta Library. We were having business meetings there the second Saturday of every month, because we agree that you can have all the great ideas in the world, but without funding, it's just a great idea. So we are committed. I have civic and business partners. We are committed to bringing back an economic infrastructure back down this Railroad corridor. I'm honored to say that one of our great partners here in Joyland is our neighbor, High Point Estates. The James Holmes, who is the president of their homeowners association, and Troy Nunnally, who's also a chair there. Both of them are also chairs for the NPUY, the neighborhood planning unit for our area. And so we've been working in tandem because we realize that what affects our community can directly affect theirs. But one of the things that I've challenged other community leaders to understand is that if we flush a problem out of our community into an adjacent community, have we really solved anything?
Right.
No. So we have to work together across community lines to ensure that, we're on the same accord. And I found that for the most part, our interests and our aspirations are genuinely the same. You want a safe environment where we can be
Absolutely.
able to walk freely. Yes, be able to walk
Exactly.
freely and not be concerned with our safety. We want access to, all of the amenities that we deserve, grocery store and all other things that we deserve to have, in our community, around our community. And so those are the kinds of things, yes, that we're working on. We also have some great entrepreneurs who have already been earmarked to be a part of some of the training and programs that we're going to be doing in the community, not only with our children, but with our young adults.
Absolutely. And like you said, we all, whether you're black, white, green, yellow, or whatever, we all want the same things. We want our children to be cared for. We want the safety. We want everything that you already mentioned. So I'm not going to reiterate, but we definitely need to understand. If we all understand that we all are in the same boat, we all are looking for the same thing. We all want the same thing. And
Yeah.
uh, there was something, I just had a senior moment. There was something else I wanted to mention, and I can't remember what it was. So I know what it was. There's some gardening and things of that nature that you've also been doing and giving families opportunities to share in the food that's been grown in Joyland. So I want you to kind of talk about that.
Yes. We've had, again, early on, some of our great supporters, William Safir, Vera Thomas, um, and Sandy Rogers, to name a few. Uh, we were determined to bring back uh, not only a health and nutrition concept, but to actually show how we can grow and sustain ourselves in our own community.
Yes.
And so we built two raised beds actually in the yard at this residence. And last year we grew so much produce, the tomatoes, summer squash, every kind of pepper you can think of, Georgia collards that were 3 feet tall. I had
And
award-winning
good. I had
cucumbers.
some. They were so good.
So, and we did that. We did that to put on a demonstration for the community to see that we can grow and sustain ourselves. And it was always our aspiration to let that graduate into us having a community garden in our own community. So we're honored to say that we will be working on that in the coming weeks. We've already got the go ahead and some of the funding to go ahead and start building our own community garden here. And the vision is that hopefully maybe by next summer, we will be able to have our own farmers market in our park where we can invite the public at large to come and other vendors to come and share their produce and other goods and services.
Awesome. Let me go back to our comments and see what people are saying. P Funk 311, he says, praise be to Allah. I see that Allah has truly favored a humble servant. May Allah reward you for your unselfish service. Salam and salute. Brother Sihi. Did I pronounce his name right? Saha. Or
Yes,
Sihi?
Sahi. Yes, that's
Sahi.
one of my dear brothers. One of my dear brothers from California. I made a point. The Lord has truly expanded our influence and reach, and so I've got dear ones from the East Coast to the West. Again, I spent 26 years in California, and with the exception of one of my kids, and I have 4 kids. Well, I won't even say that because I have a son that just bought a home here in Atlanta recently, but he also has a home in California. So, but my kids, grandkids, all of them are out west. And so, yes, we're truly highly blessed and highly favored.
Awesome. So we've got listeners in Los Angeles, North Carolina, and everywhere. Awesome. Now, also, Felicia, she says she loves your poetry. She's a poet as well. She
Beautiful.
loves your poetry. She also said, absolutely, we all want the same things. And
Wow.
I can't believe how fast time is going. I'd like for you to share a couple more poems if you don't mind. Are you ready to
Not at
do
all.
that? Okay,
Nah,
great.
not at all. Anytime I get our youth together, I make a point of sharing this one because there is an old adage or saying that says that those that forget the past are destined to repeat it. So this poem is called How Soon We Forget, and we must never forget. How soon we forget the repugnant odor of our dead people's meat. How soon we forget the days we wore chains on our hands and feet. How soon we forget being placed on auction like cattle and horses. How soon we forget men in white sheets and many screaming voices. How soon we forget the burning lashes of the master's leather whips. How soon we forget words of the heart kept far behind the lip. How soon we forget those that worked and died so that we might be. How soon we forget the treachery of slavery now that we're free.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Here I go again. And you know what? Not only we must always remember, but there are so many people in this country that have no clue about
Right.
all the things that we've gone through, which I feel is the reason that we have all this hatred and bigotry going on, because they don't understand. It's been an ongoing struggle for us since we came to this country. And I want to encourage our white brothers and sisters to really check out our history. Look at the history. Our country is trying to suppress the truth in this country. And it's got to come out. The truth is what's going to set America free. Once
So if I can just say, Vera, that what I've seen and what I've learned is that whites have been adversely impacted by racism,
yes.
also simply because it's given
Yes.
them a false sense of superiority. Okay. And
Yes.
so, but a lie can only live so long, right?
That's right.
And we're blessed to be in the daylight, the bright daylight light of truth. So, and truth shall prevail. And so,
And it
this,
will.
yes,
It will.
indeed.
It will. And so,
Yes.
all right. So I'd like for you to just, well, first of all, let me thank you for being here. I appreciate it. You are worthy of all the accolades. Oh, speaking of accolades, let's talk about this mural that's being, we got to talk about that. And yes, oh my God, you guys got to hear this. You got to hear this. Okay, I'll be quiet.
Well, a part of the beautification efforts in the park, and both George Shepard, our district representative, my vice president, Jared Billings, and other civic members, again, took a look at what needs to be done, not only in our park, but community wide. And in our skateboard park, there was just an enormous amount of graffiti on the walls, on the ground, on the benches. I mean, they're just writing on everything. And so we were very fortunate that the cultural events department, cultural affairs department for the city of Atlanta had some resources to be able to pay a muralist to come in and do a beautiful historic mural for our community. And I'm honored to say that we were able to select a young lady that I know. Her name is Ashley Dobson, and she's doing an amazing job with this mural, putting images and paintings of our seniors, and many of whom have already gone on. And I was surprised and honored and humbled that they put a painting of me on the wall along with them. So I'm honored.
Congratulations. That's a legacy that will stand. Congratulations. That is so,
Thank you.
so, so wonderful. And
Thank you so much.
we've got 5 minutes left. And let me see if I have any other comments. And Ken, your portrait is just amazing.
Thank you so
Absolutely
much.
amazing. And so I'd like for you to kind of close us out with a
Okay.
couple more.
Okay. I'll share this one with you. This is one of my spiritual poems. And this poem is called I, as in the alphabet I, capital I. And it says, take my hand and I will guide you through any predicament or trouble you have wandered into. I'm the king, the master, the sole ruler of all. Next to the highest mountain, I stand tall. I fix the moon and stars in their places. I am the sculptor who carved all of your faces. It is I that allows the sun to shine each day, illuminating the path so that you will always find the best way. So as you travel that often lonely path, don't pass me by. As the wind blows swiftly, don't worry, it is I.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I know that God has been your guiding light and he's led
Yes,
you to do the things that you've done. And in fact, the things that we do, how could we do them without him? And Felicia Gardner, she says, congratulations on being a part of that mural. And
well, thank you
I
so
can't
much.
I can't wait until it's done and I can go check it out. And is
Well,
there
if I'm
go ahead.
yes, if I may just say that once the community park is completed, which includes the skateboard park and the mural and all that, we're going to have a big event, and it's going to be a community-wide event where we plan to have, food and entertainment. George Shepard, our district representative, other community leaders, and city officials are going to be there along with the media. So we're going to send out invites to all of you that would like to attend that with us.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, Ken, we have 2 minutes, and I'd like to just kind of capsulize this hour with your final words.
Well, let me just say that through all of this, I feel like I have been the greatest benefactor. It has taught me so much. And the greatest lesson that I've learned, that our greatest blessings lie in service to others. There's nothing just truly priceless than having 91-year-old Mrs. Clark, who still lives in the community, to look at me teary-eyed and tell me that the Lord sent you back home, boy. He sent you back home to help us because he knew we needed help. And don't you worry about nothing because no weapon formed against thee shall prosper. Okay, sit with Mrs. 91-year-old Mrs. Andrews, and she reinforce and support me in this work. And a few days ago, I sat with one of my daddy's dearest friends. He worked at the post office with my father for 40 years, Mr. 93-year-old Frank Irvin. And he is just, and so these are the types of, this is the fuel that keeps this torch burning hot.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. And Janice, hi Janice. Janice says Joyland Community is 70 and the site of the first Black amusement park. is 100 years old in 2021. Yeah, and that was in Joyland. Also, a couple of the Black colleges started in that area, didn't they? Or one, at least one
Yeah,
of them.
Clark University wasn't far from us at what is now Carver High School, Clark University, before the AU Center was actually established. But I'm glad Janice said that, because before we close, I just want to say that we are planning a centennial celebration to commemorate this great accomplishment of our predecessors having come and bought this land here in 1921. Can you imagine that? And built the
Wow.
first amusement park for Blacks in the city of Atlanta called Joyland. So we are planning a centennial celebration with our civic and business partners, and we will keep you guys updated about the date and time.
Fantastic. And you know, anything I can do to help in your endeavors, I'm here to do. And I just want to thank you again for coming. And I want to have you back as these plans grow and come into fruition. And I want to thank our listening audience, our viewers, and I want to say just have a blessed week. Thank you. God bless.
Thank
Goodbye.
you so much, Vera. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.